What's up everybody, it's Izzy, and in this video I want to talk about the importance of training environment. So this is kind of an interesting topic because it's one of those things that's probably on the fringe in terms of, it's not a mainstream topic, and it's one of those things that can get a little woo-woo as far as, what's the concrete application here? What are we really talking about? What does it really mean? However, it's something that I think a lot of people should give more consideration. I mean, there's so many examples in sports where teams will, emphasize creating what is called, like a winning culture, which is a very common cliche in sports, right? And they want to create a winning culture from the top down in their organization, such that most people are behaving in a certain way that when somebody is acting outside of the optimal behavior for progression in the sport, it automatically kind of casts them as the weird one, rather than say like what happens in a typical commercial gym where like if you're the one person who's working hard and filming your sets and keeping your headphones in and not talking about, how many chicks you tried to bang last weekend or whatever, how crazy the party got, you're the odd one out in that situation. So this is a variable that I think a lot of you guys can work on improving in order to increase the consistency of the quality, I guess, psychologically of your sessions. And again, I admit that this can get a bit airy-fairy woo-woo out there, but it is a variable that you can look to address. And I guess one of the easiest ways to do this, of course, is if there is a powerlifting gym within 30 to 45 minutes of you in terms of driving time, if you can at all swing it, it's almost always worth it, because at a commercial gym, you're almost never going to have the opportunity to have your environment bring you up. It's almost always going to be a fight against your environment where you try to rise above the environment around you and block out all of the nonsense distractions that go on in a commercial gym. And for anyone who has ever worked out in a commercial gym for any length of time can tell you, there is a lot of nonsense. There is a lot of distractions. And so the best you can hope for in that situation is to block as much of it out as possible. And admittedly, some of this requires some antisocial behavior, getting big obstructive headphones to signify that you don't want to talk to anybody, staying in your own zone as much as possible, and generally almost, transporting your mind to a different place so that you forget that you are at a silly ass commercial gym with most people doing silly ass things and not training to be an elite athlete. That's just not the goal of your average commercial gym goer, ever. It's just a rarity at a commercial gym to be around a bunch of other people who are trying to get as good as possible at a particular sport. Very rare. However, like I said, this is an important variable that you would be surprised at how big of a difference this can make to your progress, simply because more often than not, you're going to eliminate many sessions that are quote-unquote bad sessions or subpar sessions that were subpar primarily due to psychological reasons. Your motivation level on average will be higher. And again, I realize that motivation is not the end-all be-all, but let's be honest, when motivation is on your side, that's never a bad thing. Motivation, where it can be found, is a good thing. It doesn't mean you have to be motivated all the time, but none of us are going to complain when the motivation is there. And again, the great thing about being in a competitive training environment, about being around other strong lifters, is that not only does it show you what's possible, but it raises your standard. It raises your standard of what's acceptable in terms of work ethic. It raises your standard of what's good in terms of numbers. And it's kind of like that old saying, if you do a race against people that you will beat, sure, you'll beat everybody, but your time would probably be better if you raced with people that are much faster than you. Even if you were the last or worst person, let's say racing against highly skilled runners, you're probably going to do better just trying to keep up with the people that are better than you. And the same is absolutely true for your training environment. So although powerlifting is an individual sport, and to a large degree you're going to have to be quite self-reliant to be successful, there's no reason that you can't try to structure your training environment in a way that is advantageous for you. And this could mean finding, a training partner that has a similar mindset to you. This is a difficult thing to do, to be honest, but if you can do it, it's definitely a great way to improve your training environment on a consistent basis. It can involve you seeking out a gym where that's just the standard, but think about ways where you could change your environment around you so that your environment brings you up to its level rather than you having to rise above the level of your environment. And for those of you in a commercial gym, that may not be possible. But nonetheless, this is just something that I wanted to touch upon because, in my opinion, it is one of the bigger differences out there between elite athletes and maybe people who are on the cusp of becoming elite athletes is just having a better support network, a better support system, a better environment in general. I mean, think about professional sports teams. They have like a sports psychologist on hand. They have professionals in strength and conditioning, professional nutritionists, and a bunch of other people around them that are at the same level pushing them every single day in practice. And if you don't think that would have a huge benefit on your performance in the long run, sure, I mean, maybe you're not going to get like a 10% boost on the first day, but over the course of a training year, this is one of those seemingly small variables that I think can add up to big gains over time. So like I said at the very beginning of this video, this is somewhat of a nebulous concept, but to whatever extent that you can, think about the ways that you can mold your training environment to bring you up rather than you having to elevate above your own training environment. Anyways, hope you guys understand what I'm getting at in the video. And as always, my friends, good luck with your training and have a nice day. Peace.